Café Anyway. My name is Mike.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1352. Hello, it's Mike Matthews. Broadcasting from Café Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley 10. Today, we are going to hear from the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, and John Deere the engineer. We have not broadcasted from Podcastro Valley 10 in a while, and
Mike's Daily Podcast.
You know what? I've been having all kinds of technical difficulties. So hopefully this time
Mike's Daily Podcast
will be alright and we'll get through this. Hey, I wanted to sing about when I was a little childling and there was my dad driving me to see my grandma, and she lived up in a canyon, y'all. My Mima lived up in a Laurel Canyon. Yeah.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Did I see any hippies wearing the fringes with the leather and whatnot and singing Jackson Brown songs?
Mike's
No, not at all.
Daily
I missed all that
Podcast.
when I was a child in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I remember Laurel Canyon for in the 70s was seeing my Mima. No, my grandma, and I hate it when people say Mima, is so southern. And I'm not southern, although I lived in Alabama for a while. I hope you're enjoying your 3-day weekend. 3 days of fun, hopefully, as summer's almost begun. Look who walked in. Hello, Matthews, it's Chely Shoehart, job supervisor. What was Laurel Canyon like back in the 70s? Well, all I remember Laurel Canyon being is going over there and my grandma baking lunch. But look who else walked in. Oh, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman! And this is John Deere, the engineer. Do continue on with your story about Laurel Canyon. Oh, Laurel Canyon. You know, we never drove to any of the interesting areas. All that pot smoking and hippie stuff was going on around us, but I never saw it. It was sad. No, but I had great times with my grandma. She and I would often, on the hot San Fernando Valley days, go to a movie, mostly Disney movies. And it's interesting, though, because I think about it. My parents divorced when I was about 5. I was very young.
And here's today's podcast picture.
This podcast picture has nothing to do with, well, it has to do a little bit kind of with the movies, because it was a cool spaceship-looking thingy that was in San Francisco around the Embarcadero a couple of years back, and I thought I would post a picture of it today. Not for any particular reason, just I was like, hey, that was a cool time. In fact, I even did, at the time that thing was there, that sculpture, whatever you want to call it, I called up and did a Mike scavenger hunt and spoke with the people that arranged that for being there. And it was very boring. But you can hear that probably one of the past podcasts way back. That's like 4 or 5 years ago. No, it looks like 2011. Yes. So probably the first year of this podcast. But I loved my grandma and loved going to Laurel Canyon to see her. And my dad would pick me up, because my parents were divorced, would pick me up in Van Nuys, drive me over there to see my grandma on the weekends. And so I get to spend time with my dad and my grandma. And I was just thinking about it last night, because I couldn't sleep very well, because I get a lot more sleep on the weekends, especially on the 3-day weekends, and I don't have to get up at 4. So this podcast is probably getting too late in the day if you're hearing it at all. Usually I can do my podcast at 6 in the morning, but today I'm doing it at 3 in the afternoon. And I would have done it at 2 in the afternoon, but as I mentioned earlier, technical difficulties. So I would drive with my dad there, and we'd get off at this one exit. I think it's Coldwater Canyon, as you're driving on 101. And I was thinking last night about that exit and how many people take that exit that work in show business, and the young people that want to get into show business, and the young people that have no concept of what I'm talking about here. about the early days of Laurel Canyon, and all they're interested in is the stuff that I don't know anything about. Hey, I had a great time with Nick, his lovely fiance, and his roommate Jan, as we went to, don't yawn, this isn't a boring story, as we went to Molcajetes in Castro Valley, and we had a wonderful time with margaritas and delicious fattening food of the Mexican type at Los Molcajetes. And Mr. Jan and I had a discussion about Kevin Smith, and he loves Kevin Smith, and I can't stand Kevin Smith. And Jan, however, at his young age, has this tremendous mind of movies and TV shows, and he knows all this trivia. I know only so much up until maybe the 90s, and then I peter out. I don't know much after that, but I got so sick of movies. I got so sick of TV, and all I watch now is this thing on Netflix called Escape to the Country, where you have these nice old British couples. Phyllis and Bill have decided, or William have decided, because it's England, William have decided they want to retire. So they are going to retire to the country. We'd really like a thatched roof. Yes, a thatched roof would be lovely. So they go on a tour. What do you think of the houses we've showed you so far? We like the first one, didn't like the second one at all. No, the second one was bullocks. So then but what I find, as in American TV would never have the old British couple on. They'd never have any old couples. It's always the young newlyweds. And the young newlywed couples, don't they look hot? They're so hot. They're young and hot. Gotta have them on TV. But here's the thing. They're young and hot, and then the young hot wife gets pregnant, and then the young hot husband gets bored with his now... It doesn't look like she did. She was all slender, but now she's with baby, and she's pregnant. Oh, and so he cheats on her with a young hot somebody else who thinks that young hot men that are married are hot. And then it turns into a hot mess. And then they become old, and then they show up on this British TV show. That's where that's the circle of life. So that is what I love to watch, that TV show, and not so much the other stuff that's on these days. Your Game of Thrones, Hey, you know what? Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about weight. Let's talk about slender and fat and the ideal weight and all that. And married, when you get married and you gain pounds when you get married. I know. I went there. I was there. I did that. So Adele has never been this slender woman. So she's not the typical TV fodder. But she is lovely, and lovely voice. And I overheard someone at one of the radio stations I work at, and I will not say which one, but some idiot said the following: yeah, I like Adele's music, too bad she's ugly. Yeah, I heard that from some white old guy, and I thought to by old I mean he's a little older than me. What a jerk. What a jerk. So you're going to hear that now and then, and what are you going to do? You're going to podcast about it, of course. Adele is hot, and if she would dump her husband for me, I would gladly be Adele's husband, and I would write her a song. And not a sad song either. It would be a happy song. I'm married to Adele, and I said, what the hell is wrong with white old men that work at radio stations? They can't talk to the nations because they're stupid. It's something to that effect. It'd be a great song, and I think you'd all enjoy it. Kevin Smith wouldn't, though, because he's busy making crap. And Jan would disagree with me on that matter, and that's fine. There's nothing to yawn about. And Jan would love the fact that I'm using his name in multiple ways. Verbs, nouns, conjunctions, adjectives. Hey, go to C-SPAN right now. Speaking of yawning, I love on the weekend to watch C-SPAN And to hear, they had a lexiconist, a linguist is out. I don't know if he was cunning or not. That's a joke from a James Bond movie. Anyway, Roger Moore. So sad he's gone. The Saint. Watch The Saint. What a movie, what a TV show that was going back. I don't know. I haven't watched it lately, but Roger Moore. And he and Sean Connery were really good friends. Hey, back to Roger, backing up further than where I was and talking about the lecturer who was a linguist. And he was talking about how people talk today in today's world. And I think he was getting it because he's black. He was talking about the way he said, I don't know. He said the following. I don't know if I want to say what he said. Look it up. It was fascinating. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the way people talk today. And he was dissecting it. I can't remember it all right now. But the fact of the matter is, we all talk differently. And you could say there's a way white people speak versus black, and that there's differences. And he was saying, he goes, I know I'm going to get people watching this on C-SPAN angry at me, but I don't see why you can't say Bill and me went to the store. They always say Bill and I went to the store because I is a subject and me is when ends in the prepositional. Something is happening to me. Me is not a subject. And I found it fascinating, his lecture. Look it up on C-SPAN. It's brilliant. So I hope you're enjoying your 3-day weekend. If you're listening to this podcast and still enjoying your 3-day weekend, thank you so much. If you're going to do any shopping on Amazon, go through that link at mikesdailypodcast.com, and that helps us out. And you can hear past interviews. I have them alphabetized through L now. I've gotten to L. What the L, Adele? And you can hear all those at mikesdailypodcast.com, the interesting people that I've interviewed over the years. Now, we're going to get to a subject that I have not prepared at all, and you won't notice. And it's called Fair and Unbalanced.
Fair and Unbalanced.
Oh, yes. There we go. And Basil approves of this segment. Let's get to this story about NBC News. Alex Rodriguez, the former MLB star, will join Good Morning America as a guest contributor. Okay, that's exciting. What about this story? I heard someone tell me in radio recently, news radio, you never read news stories cold. It sounds terrible. No, it doesn't. This sounds wonderful. What's Ivanka Trump's Memorial Day controversy? She tweeted out a recipe for champagne popsicles. Oh, that's it? But they didn't tweet out support for the armed forces on Memorial Day. I'm getting a little tired of it, aren't you? Aren't you getting tired? Even though this is a liberal, in the liberal category of podcasts, aren't you getting a little tired of some of the criticism of Trump? It's just a little, it's at this point, I'm getting a little tired of it, and the last story I wanted to tell you in our Fair and Unbalanced section, actually we're pretty much fair at this point. It's still unbalanced. Is this one about Judy malware. And it's on Android phones. Uh-oh. It may have infected 36 million devices. Originally discovered by researchers at Checkpoint last week, the malware has been dubbed Judy and is potentially one of the most widely spread pieces of Android malware we've seen to date. It's currently believed that upwards of 36.5 million Android devices may have already been infected. The malware, which is seemingly designed to underhandedly generate ad revenue, was found lurking on 41 separate apps on the Google Play Store and was apparently able to skirt around Google's bouncer system. Some of the offending apps have been available for download for years, though at this point it remains unclear if the malware has always was always present or perhaps inserted later on via a software update. The malware uses infected devices to generate large amounts of fraudulent clicks on advertisements, generating revenues for the perpetrators behind it. As we go outside of Café Anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley. Yeah, there was something about John McCain saying that, hey, we can't trust Putin. Once again, reiterating that he can't stand Putin, and he's mad at Trump for even being friendly towards Putin. So there's that. He said that John McCain was saying that Putin's worse than ISIS. Meanwhile, Putin and the what's his name, Macron of France, are talking about working together to fight terrorism, and that there was a volcano in Alaska in the Aleutian Islands spouting out ash. And there you go. There you're up to date with Mike's Daily Podcast as we do this show daily. And I had time to do it daily today here in Podcaster Valley, Tenant, and I haven't done that in a while, and I'm going to try and start doing it again. I didn't do it for a while because I was busy. When I was in Pleasanton, I would always work on my show for the country radio station, but that's done. Country Crossroads Radio is about to go bye-bye. So, next show, it is going to be Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!